Hello and welcome to my Battlefield 1 tips video. So I'm hoping that by following these tips you'll be able to improve your gameplay, score more points and help your team win more games. Some of the tips are going to be pretty basic, but they're so fundamentally important to Battlefield 1 that they simply have to be included. A few of the tips will be a little bit more advanced and even veterans of the Battlefield series might not know about them. So my first Battlefield 1 tip is change your key bindings. If you notice in this clip, I'm able to switch between all of my items completely seamlessly. So when we watch this back in slow motion, you can see that I'm able to quickly equip my syringe and revive my teammate before shooting at the enemy. And later on you can see that someone throws a gas grenade at me and I'm able to equip my gas mask, switch to my secondary, kill an opponent and then revive a teammate before the fortress gun takes me out. You'll find it very difficult to achieve these quick transitions if you're using the default key bindings. Now in Battlefield 1 the default key bindings aren't going to be optimal because the game has to account for a generic type of PC hardware. However, most gamers have a lot of additional functionality on things like their mice, so I suggest you have a play around and find what works for your preferences and hardware. So on to my second Battlefield 1 tip. Unload ammo and health on anyone you can. With your key binding sorted out, you shouldn't even need to think about this. Make it a reflex action. If you see someone, throw them a pouch. Don't wait for them to ask. And if you're a support player, pay particular attention to assault players who are trying to take on vehicles. So not only does being liberal with your ammo and health help your team win, but it's worth big points. Now, you hear a lot of people say this, but just how big are we talking about? So hopefully you've noticed I've put a counter in the top right of my screen just below my logo. It's counting up the points I'm getting just for performing resupplies. So whilst we wait to see how many points I accumulate, I'll just talk a little bit about crates versus pouches in case you're not aware of the differences. Now a crate will resupply multiple teammates simultaneously within a radius, whereas pouches will work on an individual and they're a one-use item with a very small pickup zone. It's entirely up to you which one you use. I'd say pouches tend to suit players who like to be on the move a lot, and crates tend to be better for players who tend to hang around a bit more. So I've skipped over about 18 seconds of footage where nothing interesting happens, and I'm at the point now where I'm moving on to another flag, and you can see I'm still getting points for resupplying my teammates. In total I've gained 420 points in well under 2 minutes of gameplay. I think it's around a minute 45 seconds or something like that. And just one last tip for support players, it's a good idea to keep yourself well resupplied, because your ammo crate or pouch will resupply the ammunition for your weapons before it resupplies your explosives. And if you're trying to take on a vehicle with a limpet mine, you don't want to be hanging around for too long. Okay, so I finished that clip off with a tasty grenade kill, which leads me into my next Battlefield 1 tip. Get good with grenades. So when you throw a grenade in Battlefield 1, you want to be reasonably confident that it's going to land where you want it to land. And more than that, that it's going to explode where you want it to explode. Which is why my personal favourite in Battlefield 1 is the impact grenade, because the short fuse makes it very easy to predict where the explosion's actually going to be. And it gives the enemy very little time to react. Now with impact grenades in particular, you can use ricochet to your advantage very easily by bouncing them off objects so that you control where the explosion's going to be. So with this particular kill I wanted to finish this guy off and decided I'd bounce the grenade off this rock formation in front of me to make sure that I didn't throw the grenade too far past the enemy, and to trigger the fuse as quickly as possible so that the opponent has less time to react. And my aim was to get it roughly exploding in his face. I think I fell a little bit short, but I got the job done. And with this next kill, you can see that on my minimap there are 3 guys clustered together behind this wall on my left, around about here. My aim was to bounce my impact grenade off this object here. I managed to catch all 3 in the explosion, 2 of them go down, and as I come around the corner to check for the other survivor, by the time I get there he's already dead, but you can see I've gotten some assist points there. In Battlefield 1 there are plenty of objects and bits of terrain that allow you to get creative with this approach. Okay, so let's fast forward to the end of this match for my next Battlefield 1 tip, which is screw your KD. In Battlefield 1 everyone wants to get a good kill-death ratio, but in reality it's not that important. It's a bit of an archaic throwback to when FPS games were all deathmatch based, but with a game like Battlefield 1, yes, it is helpful to have a positive KD, but it's much more important to play the objective and support your teammates. And Battlefield 1 rewards you well for doing so. You'll score much more points and place much higher for completing actions that help your team win, rather than focusing on just not dying. Obviously not dying comes into play since you can't capture a flag while you're dead, but if you play the objective a lot, you'll expose yourself to more battles and you'll skill up quicker. So let's take a look at the scoreboard. I'm in second place with 52 kills and 12 deaths. That's a pretty good KD ratio for someone who's playing the objective, but what you really want to take away from this is that the guy in first place has only 20 kills, which is less than half of what I got. In fact, he's got less kills than the next 4 highest scoring guys. But he ranked first because he played the objective better and helped his teammates out more. You've already seen how many points you can get for helping an individual teammate out by giving them ammo pouches. Well, capping a flag helps your entire team out simultaneously. So DICE have made it so that Battlefield 1 rewards you accordingly. Okay, so we're back on Ballroom Blitz now for my next Battlefield 1 tip, which is maintain situational awareness. You need to keep an eye on the minimap as much as possible, as well as paying attention to your surroundings. And this can really help you out with survivability, hopefully whilst you're getting those flag caps. However, the use of the minimap in Battlefield 1 hinges on one crucially important thing, and that is spotting. By spotting, I mean pressing the spot button, that's Q on the PC, and also by using spotting flares. You can't be passive about this in Battlefield 1. It's not like other games in the series where if an enemy fires an unsilenced weapon, they'll reveal their position on the minimap. The only way an enemy shows up in Battlefield 1 is through active spotting means. If you're a scout, unless you're off camping in the hills somewhere, you should be equipping and using spotting flares. No question about it. So in this clip, hopefully you'll have seen that I knew ahead of time where every enemy was going to come from, so I could be positioning myself accordingly and looking in the right direction before they arrive. So my next Battlefield 1 tip is also regarding the minimap, and that is that you can actually change the minimap size and default zoom level in the game options. So you're probably getting a good picture of the importance I place on the minimap, and for that reason I set my minimap zoom to 130% with zoom levels that allow me to resolve very fine details regarding the enemy position, so that I can get away with doing things like this. Okay, on to the next clip. Let's take a look at the minimap again. I can see that there are a bunch of enemies here and my entire squad is caught in a protracted corridor battle. And I've assigned C as a capture objective, but no one seems to be moving up. So my next Battlefield 1 tip: flank. If you can flank the enemy, it's almost always a good idea. It's significantly easier to kill someone when their back is turned to you. So now that I've cleared out the enemy, the stalemate is broken, and you can see on the minimap that my team are filling through and we go on to capture the flag. And whilst we're on the subject of capturing flags, remember, if you're a squad leader, give sensible orders, don't overreach, otherwise the game will fall apart. And if you're a squad member, follow orders. A unified squad is much stronger and more effective than one that is spread out across the map. So I hope you've been paying attention to how much I've been using my pistol, because that's my next Battlefield 1 tip. Use your pistol. More than that, get good with it. In Battlefield 1, the sidearms are actually better weapons than you might think, as long as you practice with them. If you only use them once in a blue moon, you're not really going to be good enough when the time comes that you need it most. Get accurate, learn how fast to fire, when to hip fire, and when to aim down sight. Check out my sidearms guide if you want to know more about the different pistols in Battlefield 1. I'll show it as the featured video at the end of this one. And speaking of aiming down sight, my next tip is one that even veterans of the Battlefield series might not be aware of. You might already know that you can change the aim down sight sensitivity. However, did you know that you can actually change the individual sensitivity for each zoom level? Now, as a general note, when you tweak these settings, you want to be thinking about the typical engagement distance for the weapon class in mind, and how much finesse you'll be needing at that distance. So to illustrate the usefulness of this particular setting, I've dug up an old clip where I'm learning to use the Hellriegel. And if you notice, my aim isn't too good. I'm getting kills, but they're not clean. My iron sight is all over the place because I'm overcompensating for my opponent's movements. Now, to be good with a Hellriegel, you really need to be able to track your opponent in a very fluid way, because it actually takes quite a long time to down an opponent with this weapon. You have to put a lot of bullets on target, and the rate of fire, although okay, is not spectacular. So if you go into your options, then controls, and under the advanced tab, you'll find that you can tweak all of your zoom-specific aim down sight sensitivities. So my Hellriegel has a 1.25 zoom, so I turn the sensitivity down to 85%. Then hit deploy. So I've chosen to keep this this bit when I'm running down the corridor, so you know it's not a setup, and that I'm actually playing better because of the adjusted aim down sight sensitivity. So as soon as I engage an enemy, you can see that I'm doing a much better job of tracking my opponent's movements. So I'll just say a bit about how you can use this setting to your advantage. For example, you could give your infantry rifle variants a 2x zoom and a reduced aim sensitivity, since at the typical range you'll be using an infantry rifle, your target will actually appear quite small in your iron sights. You could also set some of your pistols to a 1x zoom and use 100% sensitivity in order to maintain good close range mobility when aiming down sight, which is what I do for the high rate of fire pistols. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I really hope that the tips I've provided will help you improve your Battlefield 1 gameplay. My channel focuses exclusively on Battlefield 1, so for more guides and gameplay, have a look at it. Now, I really would like to do this as a full-time thing, and the things that will enable me to do that are subscribers, likes, and comments. So I really hope you can do that. To subscribe, just click on the button in the bottom right of the video. I've also got my web link hovering in the top left of the video, and my sidearms guide as the featured video in the bottom left corner. And if you want to check out my website, I'll be putting all of my videos on there, and also be including some detailed written guides. It's a bit more active than watching a video though, you will need to read, but you will get some more detailed information than what is provided in just the videos. And one last Battlefield 1 tip to send you off. For Pete's sake, please team up on vehicles, especially behemoths. Do it, and do it fast. They go down much quicker if everyone contributes. Alright, ta-ta for now.
We have lost Objective Edward.